I was 8 months old when my father was murdered. And growing up in Lagos, Nigeria, seeing single parent homes was very rare. And so as a kid, the older I was getting as a kid, I never had any friends who had a single parent. Everyone came from a two-parent home. And so I was dealing with a lot of anger. And particularly because my mom is a devoted believer. And in my mind, it's like, you love, this God so much, but where was he? And so I didn't fully believe in God as a kid because in my mind, it's like, where were you when my father was murdered? And so I remember on a particular day, my mom was looking for this document. And I was so frustrated. It was something she really needed. And I was just like, you know what, God, if you were really here, if you were real, you would have protected my father. My mom would not be frustrated looking for this document. And I kept seeing like random pictures of my dad would just show up in weird places. And it made me even more angry. But then I go to my room at night and there is a presence in my room. I didn't see anyone at that point, but it was so strong, I knew someone was there. And so then I'm like, I'm a bit panicked because in my mind, it's like, this feels like a horror movie. But I knew there was a difference with how I was thinking and what I felt. In my heart, I felt peace. But then as a kid, those emotions are confusing. And so immediately I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to my mom's room. So I go to my mom's room and she's like, hey, what are you doing here? And I'm like, no, I just want to, sleep in your bed. She's like, okay, hop in. So I lay in her bed. And the moment I laid in her bed, she's out cold. She's no longer responding because I'm like, hey, mom, and nothing. And so now I'm a bit panicked, like, wait, why aren't you responding to me? And the same presence is in her room. And so at the time, now I know it was the Holy Spirit, but at the time, I don't even know where the wisdom came from when I said, Lord, okay, God, there's a God my mom believes in. She calls him Lord. And I said, Lord, if this is of you, cause wind to flow through my ankles. And immediately there was this gush of wind that just went through me. And then in my mind, I'm like, okay, Stephanie, calm down. She really loves this God, so he must be nice, So then I'm like, I cover my face with a blanket and I close my eyes. And with my eyes closed, I see this angel sitting down. At the time, I thought the angel was God. And so I throw the blanket off. And with my eyes open, I see the same person. So their whole makeup was just light. They have the frame of a man, but their whole essence was light radiating out of them.
And even though you kind of have like almost a reverential fear, you still had peace.
I have this peace inside, but in my mind it was like, should I panic? Yeah. But at that point, the moment I prayed about let wind flow through my ankles, I was like, okay, let me come in agreement with the peace that I feel.
And the fact that you would even think that kind of prayer.
I don't know where that came from, but it had to be the Lord.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I open my eyes and I see this person. They stand up as they're walking towards my mom, so I think it's God. And I'm like, okay, God, I have so many questions. Where were you when my father died? And he starts speaking this language that I couldn't understand. And I'm like, oh, come on, you should know I only speak English. And so he walks towards my mom, he opens her hand, he puts this piece of paper in her hand, closes it, and is gone. And then my mom wakes up. So I'm telling her like, oh my gosh, like God was here. And my mom was like, Stephanie, no, I don't think you know what you're talking about. I'm like, no, God was here. And I'm like, he put a paper in your hand and all these things. And so she thought maybe I was just really tired. So
did she think you put the paper in her hand? Or?
No, so when he left, there was nothing in her hand. But I literally saw this paper go in her hand. So I'm trying to figure this whole thing out. So in the morning, her pastor calls her. And he said that while he was in prayer, that the Lord told him to give her a call and tell her that there was an angelic visitation in her home. And so she starts telling the pastor what, her daughter was sharing. And randomly, the document we were looking for just shows up. So we're like going through the whole house looking for this, and it's like it shows up on the dining table.
So that was like an important document.
A very important document.
Wow. So did she believe?
So then she knew that, okay, something happened, and it was right that same day I started hearing the voice of God. And he started telling me, that was not me, that was an angel. So they're speaking to me about the ministry of angels. And I think as a kid, the advantage I had was I was a kid.
Sure.
So it was so easy to
No
believe.
filters, no
there was no
filters.
filters. It's like,
Okay,
oh
this
my
is happening.
gosh, yeah,
This is happening.
This is awesome.
So, I mean, but that really maybe softened your heart a little bit towards God because you had such hurt and pain as a result of losing your dad. And not
You know, it was a journey. And so right after that, I started to have these encounters with the Lord. And the first thing he was after was my heart. Before he started talking to me about anything else, he started teaching me on forgiveness and love, because my heart was very cold.
So talk about the forgiveness part.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned that in your book, too, as far as it being a block
Yes.
to having dreams. So
Yes.
it's very important to talk about it.
Yeah, and when I look back on it, because before the Lord ever talked to me about anything else, he dealt with my heart. And so there was an encounter that I had with him, and he started showing me that I needed healed from within. And I was like, what are you talking about? He said, you have a lot of hate and unforgiveness in your heart. And I started sharing, I'm like, you know, but I don't have a dad. And
how old were you when that happened?
This was that same age, 9 years old.
9 years old?
Yeah.
So were you surprised that the Lord told you that you have hate and unforgiveness that you got to deal with?
You know, I didn't think of it. I think as a kid, I was just hearing him and just, you know, like, yeah, I should be angry because you took my dad. So that's how I was processing as a child. Yeah. And then he just started teaching me about forgiveness. And there was something he said, and it just resonated with me. And he said, no one will ever hurt you from a place of love or wholeness. And it made sense to me as a kid. And I'm like, wow, so your love, so you didn't do this to me. And he taught me about what is his perfect will. There are things that happen that are not his perfect will, but he still works it all together. And so there were, but though that very word, it changed my life. It started to break the callousness of my heart as a kid.
Recitation tells the story of a young boy. Testimony. He has a speech disorder.
Boyzone.
He stammers. Because of this speech impediment, he's constantly bullied at school. And sadly doesn't get a lot of support from home.
I have prayed, and I know God will provide.
That's until one of his teachers at school takes a special interest in him and decides to coach him for the Winning the World Bible competition.
I know it's quite difficult, but I know it's something that you can handle because I believe so much in you.
A contest that'll have him recite 50 Bible verses in 5 minutes.
We don't understand.
He's supposed to recite it in 5 minutes, sir.
A wonderful story that shows how to put the word to practice, the gift of friendship, prayer, faith, and how an encounter with the Lord changes his life forever.
In the name of Jesus.